It's the WWF Series 8, the Red Card Edition, the rarest of the rare. On today's episode of Baseball King Collectibles. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the series of WWF Hasbro line. And we're up to series number 8 of our special edition on the Baseball King Collectibles show. And to bring you along the rest of the way and take you along for series 8, the wrap-up and the recap and everything else along the way is none other than the Baseball Prince himself. Here he is.
Welcome back. How's everybody doing? Thank you again for tuning in. Really appreciate it. This is now the series 8 of our Hasbro line. Okay, you've watched 1 through 7 already. I certainly appreciate you stopping by again. Let me just get right into it. This is one of the biggest sets. I would say that this is the biggest set for a few different reasons. I would say definitively, as far as average cost per figure signed, this is probably it. Because even the ones that are gettable are still huge names and still, certainly command a higher price point. As well as not even the signature itself, but the figures itself, even unsigned, are quite valuable. So this is certainly the per figure on average the highest valued set for sure. Also, probably has a couple of the rarest ones as well. So here's the Lex Luger. This is the one that certainly is doable, is gettable, and Lex Luger was, I would say, a disappointment, right? Because he could have been certainly the face of the WWF. He certainly could have been the champion. He certainly could have, carried the mantle, so to speak, after Hulk Hogan left. And that's what they were hoping for. They were hoping for him as the next Hulk Hogan, the face of the WWF. They had him really lined up to beat Yokozuna to win the championship. He with Bret Hart tied in the Royal Rumble. You know what? Let me just bring Bret into this. They tied in, I believe, the 1994 Royal Rumble. The infamous both landed outside of the ring at the same time. They must have. It's got to be a tie. Then they faced off. I think they did a count out when the. I'm sorry. Lex Luger beat Yokozuna to a count out, I believe. Instead of actually winning the championship. Interesting. Lex figure unsigned, probably, again, red card series, a little bit rare, probably 175, and signed probably 225. Lex is in a wheelchair. He suffered some back issues, some spinal issues, and it really, for a long time, I don't believe he had much mobility at all. Now, of course, he's able to get around. He's able to sign. We're all happy for that. He did sign this in a beautiful blue paint pen, and he puts the narcissist. Okay, this was his original gimmick. You even see it, right above. It's beautiful the way he signs it here, even compared to his stamped Hasbro signature. And that was his gimmick. He was the narcissist. He was when he first, this is his original gimmick before he became the all-American kind of hero. He was he was a heel. He came in as a heel. I believe $1 Million Man brought him in as a heel. He was, obviously full of himself, hence the name The Narcissist. Obviously, great physique, so that he played off of that for sure. This is certainly JSA authenticated, of course. Again, his claim to fame is when it's tying that Royal Rumble with Bret Hart. Body slamming Yokozuna on the naval ship. That was a big moment for Lex Luger, but never quite getting over to winning the championship. Here's Bret Hart, and now it's going to be a big series when Bret Hart is the second one I show. Okay, this unsigned is a $500 figure. Okay, $450, $500. So for this to be the second one I'm showing, what's coming up next. Okay, this is one I did not get myself. Okay, I can certainly tell you that I would love to meet Bret. He does a lot of signings. I've never quite had the opportunity to meet him himself. He does sign a lot, like I said. So his autograph doesn't bring the value that a Shawn Michaels would, or a Undertaker would, or some of the other big Hulk Hogan would. Some of the bigger names of that era. Not as big for Bret because of how much he has signed. But he's just as big of a name as everybody else. I don't have to name Bret Hart's accolades. Okay, he's again Royal Rumble tied with Lex Luger in 1994, I believe. Championship after championship, tag team championships with Anvil. Um, Intercontinental. Beating I believe Roddy Piper. Some just mega moments, beating Stone Cold, beating Shawn Michaels. Okay, just he's faced the biggest names and he's beaten the biggest names. Bret Hart is a legend. Wasn't my favorite. I was a Shawn Michaels guy. You were either Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart at the time. I can tell you that. But I was Shawn Michaels. But when you kind of go back and rewatch the history of wrestling, early '90s, mid '90s, late '80s, Bret Hart is you can't talk about the history of the early to mid '90s without talking about Bret Hart for sure. Okay, he was a big name. Again, this is probably a $500 figure. For whatever reason, a little bend here. That probably kills the value a little bit. This would be probably in mint shape, like a $600 figure. Signed, this is probably a $600 figure. Okay, signed and authenticated with a silver either Sharpie or paint pen. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, this is Bret Hart's obviously second figure, right? There's technically 3 that you need signed in Series 4. You do have a version that has a pink and one version that has a purple heart. You need both, of course. And then, of course, this is the third one. There is also a mail-away Bret, which is just in the top 5 as far as value in the Hasbro line. It's probably like a $4,000 bagged mail-away figure. So, all right, here we go. Next is probably other than HBK growing up, this is my favorite wrestler, The Undertaker. Okay, just iconic. Just much like Bret Hart, his accolades speak for themselves. The biggest thing probably is the longevity, right? Came up in probably '91 and didn't retire officially till a few years ago, and you see him, on WWF programs and pay-per-views and stuff like that. As recently as last year's WrestleMania, actually he was on Raw a couple weeks ago. He's still involved. He still keeps himself in shape. He had a WrestleMania streak where I think he won like 22 or 23 in a row. Finally losing to Brock Lesnar, which was controversial, of course. We know why. Undertaker is just a absolute legend. The best character for sure, the best gimmick for sure, and probably in the top 5 again, Mount Rushmore of best of all time, and certainly for me, he's probably, like I said, my second favorite, right ahead of probably Stone Cold, right behind probably HBK. Love the Undertaker. This figure itself, it's just super mint. Okay, authenticated, of course. This figure itself, I didn't get this myself. I did meet him when I was 4 or 5 years old. I have a picture that'll pop up. Him and Paul Bearer. He was in full gimmick. Didn't even smile, even with a 5-year-old next to him. They kept up. They kept up who they were outside of the ring at that time. They didn't want to break character, even for a 5-year-old meeting him. So I appreciate that for sure. I was probably, scared to death at the time, but I appreciate it looking back that he did do that. Again, so this figure unsigned in this condition is easily, in this condition, $600. You could probably pick one up for $450 in much worse shape, but for this condition, $600, and then signed, $800, authenticated, purple paint pen, signed on the perfect spot, beautiful, Undertaker's beautiful signature. He has a few different versions, but probably this is my favorite one. Just gorgeous. Okay, just gorgeous. Even this figure loose is like a $150 figure with the jacket. As I mentioned with Bret, there is a mail-away version, a bagged mail-away version. That's a few grand, slightly different hair color. I think same coat, same figure otherwise. Besides like the hair difference, a little bit lighter, I believe. But yeah. So again, Undertaker as the third, as far as value goes, is tells you everything you need to know about this series. This series is just one after the other heavy hitters. Look at this one. This is just incredible. The Beast from the East, Bam Bam Bigelow. Okay, grew up, born not far from me. He's from New Jersey. Okay, I'm in New York. So Bam Bam Bigelow was his career spanned from mid '80s, I believe. He entered into WWF. How do I know that? Well, I'm born in '89, but I did, of course, watch back some of the '80s stuff. But I can tell you, he has an LJN figure, which tells you that that's mid '80s for sure that he was on the scene, because those figures obviously were done by 1990-ish. So he's got an LJN figure. This is his second figure. This is his first Hasbro. It was only Hasbro. And the detail of this, the way they did this, his head tattoo, right, his arm tattoos, okay, his flame outfit, it's just incredible, right? And the detail they put into this. Of course, he's on the chubby side. All right, we love Bam Bam. We don't mind that he's a bit overweight. That's okay. Let me tell you something. He did a moonsault off the top rope. He was super athletic for his size. Signature's a little light. Trying to put it in the light where you see it. The Bigelow is really nice, of course. Bam Bam is there too. It's just, you know what it is? It's written on the black, so it blends in a little bit. But authenticated Beckett. So I actually bought this authenticated. Remember, I only do JSA because of the proximity to my house. I bought this one already, Beckett authenticated. Super nice figure. Just let me talk about Bam Bam for just a minute. Never won a championship in the WWF. Never was on a title scene. I can't. I don't think maybe an ECW championship, but that was even before they merged with the WWF, I believe. Okay. Now the thing about Bam Bam is, obviously he was, never in the world championship scene, intercontinental even. Never even won a tag team championship. However, I would say probably because of his look, because of his style of wrestling, it was unique. Again, athletic big man, probably one of the first as athletic and big combination, in that way. For that reason, Bam Bam is, certainly, an icon. Some of people's favorites. It's a shame that he was never in that title scene, and he never got a chance to win any big championships. He feuded with, again, mid-card people, even losing to like Tatanka when Tatanka first came out with that big winning streak. He was part of the $1 Million Corporation, I believe, even then tagging with Tatanka. His claim to fame is his WrestleMania match against Lawrence Taylor, okay? Which is, if you don't know wrestling, you probably hear what I'm saying right now, and you're saying, "What, Lawrence Taylor? You mean the Giants defensive end?" Yeah, that one. I believe it main evented that WrestleMania, which I believe was also Shawn Michaels versus Diesel, if I remember it correctly, for the belt, where Pamela Anderson and I believe Jenny McCarthy were in each corner. But for this one, Bam Bam was against LT, Lawrence Taylor. LT winning, of course. God forbid they had the WWF superstar winning a match against the wrestling, the football player. But yeah, that's a great match. Not probably the style of it and the excitement of it, but the fact that you had one of the greatest defensive player of all time, against the wrestler, it drew a lot of eyes, and I think that's what they were going for at that time. At that point, kind of, I would say struggling with the ratings, and they were trying to, get a big pop, and hence the outside, not movie stars or models that were brought into that WrestleMania, and obviously, like I said, the Hall of Fame football player. But that's his claim to fame, I'd say. Other than that, bit feuds with, Tatanka and I think Doink. Nothing. I'm talking WWF, of course. Yeah, the figure itself probably, in this condition, which is really nice, probably 225, 250, and signed probably 10 times that, probably 2,500. Again, authenticated. Nice Sharpie, not so. I've seen faded versions of this, and he died in 2007 at 45 years old. Okay, when you're that size and live a healthy lifestyle with drugs and probably steroids, even at his size, maybe not. It catches up to you, and it caught up to a lot of people, and that is why there's so many of these valuable figures out there. Because unfortunately, a lot of these guys, they passed away, way too soon, and he was no exception. So let's move on to another guy that died just absolutely way too soon, Mr. Perfect. Okay. Much like Bam Bam, okay, never, quite made it to the top of the title scene. He did, however, play a big part in the Intercontinental, scene. I believe winning even a time or two. He's involved in that iconic promo where Ric Flair wins the Royal Rumble and gives his great speech holding the championship, and he's in the background. He kind of, when Ric Flair hit the scene in the WWF, he was his kind of, I don't want to say manager, but he accompanied him to the ring a lot. But Mr. Perfect had his own singles run where he was just literally, his nickname is due to the fact that he was great at everything. Okay, watch some of his vignettes and his promos where he's playing other sports and he's doing other things where he just does it perfectly. You ever see him flip a towel from his back to his front and just catches it perfectly? He did that every time. He was so smooth. He was a technical, just an absolute professional in the ring. Feuding with Bret Hart, keeping up with guys like that. Rick Rude, just a lot of big names that he again faced and beat. Never, Hogan, or never the top guys when they were at their top. Facing Bret in more of the Intercontinental scene rather than the championship scene. But Mr. Perfect was, just incredible. You saw Series 3 where I had it on a foreign card. And I had it signed Kurt Hennig. I didn't have it signed Kurt Hennig, but it was signed Kurt Hennig. And I talked about how I wished that it was on an American card, signed Mr. Perfect. Of course, there's no such thing as foreign card by the time the red cards hit the scene. But this is what I'm talking about, right? Just Mr. Perfect instead of Kurt Hennig, his actual character at the time. I could say that a lot of them were probably signed while he was in WCW after the fact when he was going by his real name, Kurt Hennig. But to get this signed, Mr. Perfect, adds a ton of value. Beckett authenticated. I got this from the same person with the Bam Bam and a couple others as well. Got some really rare ones from him. That's how I got these in my collection. And super happy to have this. He died in 2003 from a drug overdose. Again, they just like a lot of the other guys at 44 years old too. A lot of the other guys just way too soon. He had way too much left in the tank, I would say, and it's just a real shame. Figure by itself in the $200 range in this really nice condition. Signed $3,000, right? Find me another one. Authenticated, signed Mr. Perfect in this shape. Doesn't exist. There's maybe a handful that I've seen, maybe 3 or 4. So this is just an incredible piece. 2,500 at a minimum, 3,500, right in that range. It's just incredible. Okay, and here's the last one, and I saved this for last because this is a top 5 rarest ones to get. And again, when I say that, I exclude, unfortunately, some of the impossible ones like Andre, Texas Tornado, and a Series 10 and a Series 11 that we'll talk about. I don't want to give away those. If you're watching this and you've watched this already, you already know who I'm talking about, Series 10 and 11, but I'll go over that when the time comes. Other than those 4, this is a top 5 for absolute sure, okay? And as far as the ones I've shown you so far, Series 1 through 8, it's probably number 2 behind Rick Rude, okay? Probably number 2 behind Rick Rude. He died in 2000. He died at the age of 34, okay? Way too young, okay? Obviously, he was, 600 pounds. He probably wrestled at 450, and he was just super athletic. Listen to The Undertaker. Undertaker and him were really good friends. Listen to The Undertaker talk about him. Listen to some of his peers at the time talk about him. Just incredible the way they speak about him. And for that reason, and rightfully deserved, he won the championship twice. He won the WWF Championship twice, beating Bret Hart. The second one escapes me. It might have been Hogan. I know he lost to Hogan at WrestleMania in that infamous match where Yokozuna beats Bret Hart and then Hogan comes running out to save the day. At that point, Hogan was already way past his big pop with the fans. They were tired of it. He would go to WCW really shortly after, and that was just it's an infamous scene where he beats Yokozuna, takes the belt off of him. But Yokozuna was incredible. He feuded with the Undertaker. He beat the Undertaker. Okay, beat the Undertaker at a casket match. Of course, he had some outside help by Bam Bam Bigelow and some other guys as well. Some of Mr. Fuji's guys like Heel Crush, guys like that. But Yokozuna was incredible. Not a whole lot of opportunity to get this one signed. Maybe 5 years, for 6 years. Okay, of course it is authenticated. All right, this figure in mint shape is 250, 300. In this shape, which is not mint. Okay, it's still a $200 figure, but signed, it's a $3,000 figure, easy, all day. Again, show me another one. All right, find me another one. They don't exist. There is another Yokozuna in Series 11 green cards. We'll see if we have that one. But just to have one for sure in my collection, I'm super thrilled about. This was one of the hardest ones to obtain. I got this very luckily on eBay a couple years ago. It popped up. It was unauthenticated at the time. It popped up on eBay. I bought it right away. Probably for like $1,000. I don't really reveal what I pay for these, but that was probably the biggest steal that I've ever gotten. So I will say that. Let me wrap it up here. Okay, this is again my favorite series, the rarest series. All right, please. There's a playlist out. Watch 1 through 7 after you watch this. Okay. Like it, subscribe, all right? Ring the bell. Make sure you're watching these videos, comment, share, okay? And a couple of videos are gonna pop up on screen as well. Please watch those too. It really helps us, of course. This is the Baseball King Collectibles. I am the Baseball Prince, and we will see you soon for Series 9 purple cards, where a couple rare ones. Nothing like this, nothing like the yellow card series. But, still, obviously, just as interesting as the others. So we'll see you soon. Thank you.